Hi, hello, and welcome to Quiet Dark officially. Um, so stoked to have you guys here, and I feel like we're gonna have a a lot of fun. I think the best way to I've been thinking about this morning. I think the best way to think about this is like it's an experimental collaborative art project. Um, and the participants really reflect that as like being the essence of what it is. And I'm looking forward to having a bit of like discussion as we go along. So we're basically going to do a little like contemplative exercise 3 times throughout the hour. And in between, I will give you a bit of background on like why I'm doing this class, what my intention is with it, and how we can kind of begin to bring the direct experience of the qualities of darkness into our daily life in a way that is supportive and light and fun. Um, my intention is that it's like very gentle and light-hearted, and that we have like quite a slow pace with it, and it's like quite calming, um, and quite fun. So part of like my perspective with this is coming from like a syncretic point of view. So that's syncretism is like the merging of different worldviews and like almost like looking at things comparatively, like what do these different traditions have in common? What's different about them? What do they share? In particular, you guys might know this already, but I went to a Steiner school. So part of that is like you learn a lot about the seasons and like the growth and decline that's in nature. And then I've also studied Taoism in contrast to marketing. And that really led me to this deeper engagement with like the qualities of absence and decline and um, uncertainty, unknowing. And I think it's like really worth doing this kind of just direct like contemplation of darkness, and it helps, at least for me, it helps me like in preparation for things that are difficult, but it also helps me feel closer to life as it occurs. um So over the 6 sessions, even within the session, they're kind of intentionally repetitive. So we're just going to be doing the same thing like over and over and over. And the the plan with that is that it like really soaks into our bones, um, and like permeates our being. um, so for today, I want you to think of it like we're walking through a tunnel together, hand in hand. And throughout the hour, we will stop and have like a little chat. And then we'll like hold hands again and keep walking through the tunnel. So, how we're going to do that is this is like partially inspired by a trashy reality TV show that's called Married at First Sight. And in that, they have like an intimacy exercise where they stare at each other in the eyes for 3 minutes. So being that we're here like cultivating intimacy with the qualities of darkness, I thought we could stare at darkness for 3 minutes at a time, and that's going to serve as like our tunnel. So there is this artist called Anish Kapoor who has like essentially copyrighted the color that's it's called Vanta Black, and it's like the densest pigment available. And that's what was like up on the screen before I started talking. So I'm going to bring that up again and set a timer for 3 minutes. I did warn you that it's going to be experimental and kind of wet, but I trust that you guys are here for it. So we're going to look at the look at the darkness for like 3 minutes. You can also, if you'd rather, kind of look at it and then close your eyes and contemplate like where that density exists in your body or in your imagination. And then we will have a little chat, and then we'll do it again, and then we'll have a little chat, and then we'll do it again, and then we'll have a little chat. And you don't have to, but I would encourage you to take like either a mental note or a physical note after each contemplation, and just kind of see like what arises. And also know that after the session, you can talk to me about like, oh, this came out for me, this was interesting, this was unexpected, and that, yeah, like we are holding hands in the tunnel. Because I don't know what's going to happen because it's my first time doing something of this particular nature. But all the kind of framings and practices and things that we'll look at throughout the 6 sessions are things that I do in my daily life that I find helpful. Okay, any last words before we enter the tunnel of darkness? Okay, so I think we'll do this first one without music as well. So it'll just be silence. And then I will, after that, give you a chance to kind of share your reflections. And then I'll go into my kind of spiel about um, how I've been framing the qualities of darkness in my own life. Okay. And I'm going to do it too. So hold hands into the tunnel. And scene. It's amazing how like 3 minutes stretches in the absence of discussion or excessive stimulus. Um, any reflections, thoughts, comments, questions from doing that?
Well, I feel very ready to take a nap.
Yeah, it's like exceedingly calming, hey?
I was like, 3 minutes is not long enough. What are you talking about?
Do you need like 20
Yeah, it
minutes?
feels short.
It feels short to you.
Mhm.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. I think, yeah, even the like my experience is mediated by keeping time as well. So that's kind of different. We can do
This
a bit longer for the next one if you'd like.
Oh no, I think it's perfect because it's the right amount of creative input to begin with, I think, firstly. But it's fun because this image is also the shape of the sun as it's setting over the ocean. And it's a wonderful reversal because I'm always staring into the sun as it's setting. And then I'm like, oh, that's illegal. If I want to have sight when I'm in my 50s or 60s, stop doing that. But what happens is this green and black rainbow that goes around the whiteness of it. And I'm just like, oh, cool, there's the oneness again. There it is.
Yeah, it creates the relief, eh? It's pretty amazing how quickly that happens. Okay, we'll move that away. Um, yeah, and I think that the a big part of like the essence of this class series is that inherent dynamic harmony between the qualities of the day and the night and the growth and decline and all those kinds of things. Um, and being that I've spent like many years reading marketing literature and studying business, um, that particular realm of like human activity has a tendency to completely neglect the inherent absence, uncertainty, uh, lack of light that occurs in like in the cycles of life. Um, so it's like very dear to my heart that we can take this space to just like stare into the Vanta Black and see what arises. Um, so now I'm gonna do like a little bit of just my spiel that I've prepared. um, yeah, so from my observations of how the kind of dominant culture treats these qualities, it's often, but not always, darkness is feared, it's othered, it's seen as something separate from us, or it's framed as something to be overcome. You can think of kind of like the classic Jungian framing of the unconscious as something that we like dive into and pull out archetypes or pull out insight. And it's also something that, in cases where it is addressed, it's often in a way that is separated from our daily life. Like you can think of things like silent retreats being the absence of sound, um, or you can go to darkness retreats where you're in a dark room for a couple of days, but it's very like separated out and contained. Um, but if we open our attention in our daily comings and goings, you can feel an absence in everything. You can feel kind of like the hollowness in our body. If you enjoy music, you can notice how the rest stops in music are what give it liveliness and feeling and movement. Same with like design, it's the space that creates something impactful. So this class series it's inviting like a sanctuary for the darkness and engaging our relationship with it. So I really encourage you to like keep that in mind in between the classes. And in particular, think about how we like digest darkness in our life, like how we process uncertainty, unknowing, the absence of things. And let this be a rest stop, a reprieve, relaxing, a metaphorical nap, if you will, from the intensity of information and brightness and rush and getting that is quite present in the world today. um and also I feel like it's important to say that in this framing, like we're looking at darkness literally, like we're literally staring at a dark black thing, but we're also using it as like a metaphorical instrument towards uncertainty, night, grief, even absence, hollowness, like all these kinds of things that are included in our conception of darkness and are typified by this. It's like a paradox between density of information and absence of light. This time, I encourage you to transfer your visual experience into your other sensory apparatus. So like that came out in lots of long words, but you're kind of taking in this visual of the Vantablack, and then rather than giving primacy to the visual sense, translate that into sound, translate that into smell, translate it into feeling, emotion, touch, and you can use your imagination to do that. So this is easier if you close your eyes, but you can do it with your eyes open as well. You might want to do like start off staring into the deep abyss of the Vantablack and then kind of travel inward and see what other sensory experiences you associate with that visual. Okay, so I will begin the timer now. that time went quickly for me as well. I also did get distracted by my notes somewhat, like what's next, what's next.
Oh, that's so funny you say that, because that's exactly what is sort of coming up for me, is that like whenever we do see black in media, there's an expectation that something is beginning or ending. So the note that I took was disengaging the expectation of return.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Of
Disengaging the
course.
expectation of return. Stunning.
Wonderful.
A plus. um yeah, it's central to the approach for this class is looking at like how we frame things and position things, how that influences how we actually interact with them. So if the thematic of darkness as being almost like a full stop is like really repeating. It's like it has a way of like halting us in our tracks. It's like, oh, that's the end of that. I've also been thinking about it the last couple of days, in the context of like putting ink to a page and how the application of like black ink is what serves as like the method of illumination, and how there's like a history of, you know, like the monks in the chapel writing down the word of God in black ink. um and how it has this kind of quality of revealing and concealing at the same time, that our conceptions of things, and particularly our concepts of darkness, have a way of like pointing to them rather than actually being them. So like I can talk about it as much, we can stare at it as much, but there's still a lot of like quality contained that can't be described. That's what makes it fun to me. Yeah, did you have any kind of cross-sensory experiences? Like, I think another quality of our culture, like similar to how we give primacy to like growth and activity and things that can be quantified, we also give primacy to the visual sense. You know, like every time we're doing something on the internet, we're looking at things. So it's like, oh, how can we play with this kind of like multi-sensory or cross-sensory experience? When I stare at the Vanta Black or do any kind of darkness contemplation, which I spend quite a lot of time doing, I find it very like warm and relaxing and calming. I find it like really helps bring my system down, and then creates like a spaciousness that I don't get from if I'm contemplating something like growth or time or any of those other kind of like big mama things.
It like, oh, sorry, hi. It makes me like salivate, like
Mm.
you know? Um, the little puddle went from like really dark, like almost too dark that it tastes like burnt coffee, and then it was like dirty oil, and then it was like paint. I don't know what this says. Tart. Oh, tart, because then I was like black food. Like, what is a black food? Like an olive is like a natural black food, and then I was like tasting like olive. Blech. Um, and then I like that you said warm because I feel like it's like opposite and it's like cooling to me.
Mm.
And it kind of has like that, like almost like the under earth, like when you dig your feet like below a little bit and like the earth is like that cool, like dampness. Feel like a quality that I get a lot in like Carly's meditations, like her grounding meditation specifically with like the roots and stuff. And then viscous and like heavy bodied,
Mm.
like like a like a weighted blanket that when you roll over doesn't like isn't weighted. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't cling to you. Like
Yeah.
it's the pressure is applied, but it doesn't cling and like stick.
Mm.
Well, I'm having the best time. That's so delightful. And it is like this is why it's like so fun to do this together because uh it's our experience of that is so mediated by our individuation and our like different perspectives. Um it would be interesting to do it again with like a night sky with no stars, or a piece of fabric or an animal that's got black fur, and how that, because I think the kind of like synthetic qualities that you described is probably partially influenced by the actual material
Mm,
that that image is constructed from. So it's it's like a piece of tin foil with this synthetic pigment on it,
mm-hmm,
which like removes all our ability to see the texture. But it also is probably constructed with oil derived products. I would guess.
That's such a cool experience. I had a totally different, like I don't see images when I close my eyes. I don't
Mm.
taste, well, no, I do experience certain kinds of synesthesia, but not at a baseline almost ever.
Yeah.
And my experience was more um like sometimes I will like go dark because the sensory world is too much for me. But in this situation, because it was controlled, I got to really play with this idea of like at some point my finger touched my leg and I was like, oh, there's a causal relationship between the two experiences. But then I was thinking about if it was if like how the body's causality actually operates, and soon I was like, oh, what if the whole all of my insides are just Vanta black and everything that is occurring in them is sort of this playful causality because like my ear is sort of tickly from this thing, and it was just really silly and sweet kind of.
Yeah.
No, I've really already fallen in love with Vanta Black with that.
Oh, that's so good. That's like my exact intention, just really landing. So, um, yeah, and I often ponder how like the kind of popularization of different psychological traditions that include shadow shadow work and shadow framing. um the way that I think about it is that okay, why do things like hide in the shadow? It's because it's a very like safe and accepting absorption. It has this like quality of absorption that it's just like like you can even think about it using the metaphor of like a black hole, that it's this density that will just like take it in and take it in and take it in and take it in. um and in order to like hold that amount of information, uh there is a requirement of levity, and there is like darkness has a sense of humor in that way, that it's like if you actually just like go in there and kind of hang out there and poke around, um there's, to me, like the way that I experience it is like it's giggling. um there's this kind of like uh mischievous quality to it, and it um even if you think about like reading in low light, there's a kind of flickering playfulness that that kind of disarms our sense of like assurance and um solidity, which I think is also, it's it's good to kind of like, I hesitate to use the word, but it's quite good to microdose it. Like the 3 minutes is I think on reflection that's a good amount of time to stare into the Vanta Black, because there's like intensity there as well. um and yeah, we like bring it into relationship with all the other qualities that we experience on a day-to-day basis. It's very cool. Okay, we will do the 3 minutes for a final time, and then um we will have one more discussion, and then I reckon that will be us for the day. I mean, we'll still do other things, but for the session. um so this time I would encourage you to bring in the uh the the concept of like metabolizing. So like we're processing it this time. We're kind of moving it in and through and out. Does that land? Does that make sense? Okay. So we're having a little like snack of the Vanderbilt. Okay. Like that time I got more swept up in it, so I forgot about the timer. Framing it as metabolizing for me like puts me kind of in my like the top part of my stomach. Like I kind of fell into the little image and then was sitting in my tummy. But I'm curious to hear what your experience of that was.
I had like an opposite, or I ate it and then it dropped like straight down to like my vagina, and I was like, whoa. And then I played with that and I like let it just drip all over, and then I was like, whoa, I have like Wolverine has adamantium, I have Vanta Black.
I don't know what that
Thank,
is, but
thank you and good night. It's like the unbreakable metal that they like
okay.
injected Wolverine with, that like runs
Okay.
throughout his body, that makes him
Okay.
invincible.
Is that how he can do the like shing shing?
Yeah, those are made out of adamantium.
Okay. Okay. I'm with you now. There's a slight gap in my pop culture. I've dedicated too much time to trashy reality TV shows, and I haven't quite got. Is it Avengers? Is that Wolverine? No.
No, 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 no. Don't Avenger anything. This is pre-Avenger.
Okay.
Wolverine when he was like Hugh Jackman, like, and
Okay.
yeah, Avengers wasn't a thing.
Yeah, there's a slight gap in my Hugh Jackman lore knowledge, but
I don't know why I was into that, but I was.
yeah, I love it.
It's a great story. It's like an anti-racist, beautiful whole thing. The X-Men, they're my favorite too.
The X-Men, not the
Yes.
Avengers. Okay, okay, okay.
Oh yeah, that's Marvel, right? X-Men, or is that,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I had a funny experience with this one because I am hungry. Like I actually am going to eat after we do this.
Yeah.
And I really got in my head because looking at it was making me hungrier. And then I started thinking about if you could eat and it was just an infinite amount of density that like you could never be full. And then I was getting really in my head about it and like what what qualities that idea even has. And then what qualities does blackness have, and does it have qualities, and does it need qualities or benefit from them? And I was like, wow, good thing this wasn't 5 minutes because I would be on
Yeah.
you'd find me on Saturn right now just like and what if you could never be full again? Or we're
Yeah.
always full? What's the difference?
Yeah, that's why we're only doing it for 3 minutes at a time for sure. Um yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting, like I often think about the association that I make with eating and darkness is like when I eat meat, is it's like when you eat meat, it's like you're consuming death in a sense. Which is I mean that's quite a full-on thing to say, but it's also very true. Um uh but it's kind of a relatively new development in the way that I think about it, but it does have this kind of all-consuming, but also like you could eat it and eat it and eat it and never be full when you're like eating darkness kind of thing. Um, but it itself is like very full of information in a really like paradoxical, delightful, like delicious way. And it like, yeah, it comes back to that like um uh a kind of a side effect, or like an outcome of thinking about this particular topic in this particular way, is that it highlights the humor and absurdity of our attempts at grasping the unknowable and putting it into language. And to me, that it's like the best game ever invented, is like, okay, well, how can I translate the unknowable? And I think that's what, like, pretty much all the wisdom traditions are trying to do as well. And the more that we can kind of, like, at least for me, like, I have a tendency to, I enjoy conceptualizing things, but the more that I'm able to push my thinking to the point of absurdity, it kind of opens um uh it 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 shifts this thing that could be perceived as absence, and kind of flips it into this, like, expansive, delightful, playful openness.
I didn't know you were teaching a class on the laugh cries.
I mean, they're persistent. You're the one that coined the name, the Wizard of Joy and Crying, so yeah. It's really, like, I also didn't know that I was going to get you guys to stare at a black thing for 3 minutes at a time, but that's what I decided. Those were my artistic choices today, and I stand by them.
Me too.
Yeah, any further?
This thought that keeps coming back is that so you know transcendental meditation, like TM, like the David Lynch one that you go and learn in a place.
Yeah.
When you move to LA, you have to learn that. No, you don't have to, but it actually is a really wonderful way to learn how to meditate if you don't have a relationship with it. It's just very basic. It's just a 4-day thing where you just keep going and meditating for 20 minutes. And the first day they give you a mantra and you bring like a small gift, and it's actually not very woo woo at all. It's really basic. And then and it really actually started me on this whole process of all kinds of modalities and interests and things that I engage with and deeply appreciate, because it demystified this idea of transcendence. And years later, I was reading in a book that I think it was called Present Fresh Wakefulness or something. As some Rinpoche who wrote it, a friend had passed me this book, and I found a chapter that was basically outlining how to do transcendental meditation, but instead of receiving a mantra, you are trying to recall the shape of a rock. And it's this very dense Buddhist teacher writing it. So while I was reading it, I like couldn't even really absorb whether he was talking about a specific rock that you should look at in advance, or if you should imagine a rock, or any of that. And it was really charming to me because I had this reference point. I was like, oh, it doesn't matter what the rock is. Or you could make it matter as much as you want to. And that is what's beautiful about literally everything. So this hour has brought that to mind over and over for me. So thank you. And fuck yeah.
Mm. When you were describing that, I imagined, like, the monk, you can you can like write in and he'll mail you the rock to a PO box.
You just have to pass it along. You eventually get a letter that just has an address on it, and you send the rock along. No notes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I will definitely send you one black rock anonymously if you wish. Anyone who's hearing this call at any time.
Hi, do you have anything to say, or shall I cease recording?
Oh, I just feel like this is the second time that rocks have come up in like a sort of sacred context, and I feel like now I need to do something with rocks.
You could just you could repeat the whole class and stare at a rock instead of the Vanderblack.
I do have that little rock that I sent you with the little white spot on my desk.
Yeah.
No, I've been having a lot of ideas about rocks and river rocks specifically, and seemingly unextraordinary rocks because, like Peggy Sue was saying, like you can make it mean everything or you can make it mean nothing. And I feel like that's the vibe with like the crystal world, you know? They're like, ooh, $1,000 amethyst, let me have it. But like, what if I just was like, here's this fucking river rock that I templed and polished. You're welcome.
That just gave me goosebumps. I'm like, Piper, I need your address so we could do a rock trade.
Yes.
I'll rename the class Rock Merchants. A 6-part series in how to become a rock merchant. I'm gonna very briefly address the people watching the recording and then I'll stop recording. People of the future watching the recording, if you have any like questions, queries, you want to chime in on the discussion, you also would like to be a rock merchant, you know where to find me. And thank you all for joining me on this kind of wild adventure through the tunnel, holding hands. Okay, stop recording. So today, the title of this session is Be in the Dark for What It Is. And this is kind of laying the foundation for what we'll do on Wednesday, which is we're basically going to do Yoga Nidra on Wednesday. So just like super melty, resting into very low stimulus. And so today we're going to kind of experiment with changes in stillness or motion with our eyes closed. And it's kind of like an exploration in like proprioception. So orienting ourselves in space, but in the context of this general thematic of darkness, and like reiterating that as like we're looking at it literally, and we're also treating it as metaphor for the unknown, for the absence of things, and playing with this paradox of density and spaciousness that arises when we really sit with this theme of darkness. So again, I encourage you to treat it like a experimental collaborative art project. And the participants really reflect that, I feel. Like I've got the right people for the job, so that's delightful. And we'll kind of have pauses for discussion throughout. and see what comes up. Again, like laying the foundation for the next session, I want to invite us into this darkness as safety kind of concept, and feeling the womb-like warmth, the embrace of the absence of sensory input. In my experience, the avoidance of these inherent qualities of life create this kind of second order suffering. So if we're saying like, I don't want to go into the dark, I don't want to do something uncertain, I couldn't possibly bear it if this person was no longer in my life. Or I guess that's just attachment, but not a new idea. But the intention today is to kind of rest in this unknowing outside of a kind of approach avoid, and feel the safety in that kind of playful stillness that we're going to attempt to approach. In preparation for this class, I'm drawing resources from this book, which is, it's probably reversed for you guys, but it's Conquest of Abundance, which it's written by a philosopher of science at the very, it's like the last book that he wrote before he died. And it really, the central idea of it is that we're surrounded by such incredible richness and intensity that the processes of developing knowledge through abstraction are a way of removing us from that kind of I mean, he uses the word abundance that is flowing in life. And part of that is, if we were completely open to everything all the time, it's completely overwhelming, and it becomes like very difficult to live. But it's still something that we can play with, kind of like opening our aperture and closing it down, and being very light in our holding of different ideas. I also drew from Jean Houston's book, The Possible Human, which has a lot of exercises about like orienting your body in space, and how we kind of have like an internal map of our bodies as well as our physical bodies, and playing with that. It's also inspired by when I was a teenager, I had this experience where I went scuba diving at night. And when you go scuba diving at night, you're completely submerged underwater, and you can see about maybe 6 inches from your nose at any given time. And after about 5 minutes underwater in the dark, you completely lose your orientation of up and down. And the only way that you can reorient is by watching like which way the bubbles of your breath rise. And you also, when you go scuba diving, there's a quality of weightlessness that it's called like neutral buoyancy. So when you breathe in, you rise, and when you breathe out, you fall. And when you're at rest, you just sit in the water. So that's the kind of quality that I'm aiming to approach with some of the exercises that we'll do shortly. it feels a little bit naff, but I'm gonna read you the first verse of the Tao Te Ching, which it kind of leads in, it makes the connection with the Conquest of Abundance book, I think, that I didn't quite catch earlier. And I've paraphrased slightly to make it concise, but mystery and desire spring from the same source, but differ in name. This appears as darkness, darkness within darkness, the gate to all mystery. So that's pointing at like the big grand mystery. But through reading this Paul Feyerabend book, that has brought me into awareness of like the little mystery. So the amount of trust that's required in our daily life, like when we're doing the shopping or driving a car or meeting new people, this requires this massive assumption that the unknown is working in our favor. And that's what makes it possible. Our trust that when we purchase cheese from the supermarket, that it's cheese. That's what makes living possible. And this kind of faith in that unknown quantity, which is that's the metaphor. That's the darkness metaphor today. This faith in the unknown, it frees us from excessive worry and self-concern, and it brings us closer to the grounds of being. It allows us to get on with being with what we can perceive. So that, yeah, it's that kind of filtering in our favor. So last time we looked at a kind of cross-sensory experience. Today, I am treating it more as a global felt sense. So this kind of feeling of the whole in space, and that's where that diving story kind of is helpful. Last week I also used the visual of us like walking through a dark tunnel. Today, if you like a visual imaginative cue, I would use like a tiny little candle in an underwater cave. And obviously physically you can't like light a candle underwater, but imaginatively we can. And you can kind of feel the little gentle warm glow.
I thought that was so wonderful. So wonderful. So many things I could say, but mostly I just wanted to say that that was so beautifully stated and organized, and I really feel like I have a very grounded and felt sense of what you're aiming for in the session today, by the way that you evoked all these different things and pulled them together so beautifully.
So last week we worked in 3-minute increments. Today we're going to do 2 minutes at a time. And with closed eyes, we're going to toggle between different modes of movement. So for the first one, I will set a timer for 2 minutes, and it's really up to you if you would prefer to close your eyes or keep them open. I think different people have sometimes, for some people, closing your eyes can create a kind of more intensity, and for some people it can be really helpful in finding I mean, you could even like block your ears if you wanted to. Just anything that helps create this kind of inward facing, slightly less intensity of stimulus. Like you could turn the light off in your room if you would like to, or put a blanket on, or anything that kind of creates this turning inward. And this one's just going to be like 2 minutes. Yeah, eclipse glasses are the perfect solution. This is just setting the like our control. We're going to do nothing for 2 minutes. Return to the land of the living when light and sound and color. Okay, so with that as our base experience, we're going to do another 2 minutes. And I think I put on the copy on the website that the only requirement is to just go fully into the experiment. So this is highly experimental. So you can remain seated, but this time we're going to, with closed eyes, sit for 2 minutes and yeah, you can see my arm. Just like move your arms around with your eyes closed in space. And follow the creative impetus. It could be like tiny little swimmy motions, dances, anything that is of interest. So with curiosity.
I loved that. That was awesome.
So fun, eh? I was kind of partially watching the timer and partially participating. I'm sitting right in the corner. When I was testing this, I was in the middle of the room so I could really move freely without touching anything. But sitting here, I'm quite surrounded by hard objects like walls and desks and stuff. Oh, whoops, I just made a knocking sound. The dog's might. Okay, just about set the dog's barking, but just tempered it just in time. The contrast between the space and the firm things really stood out to me. And it really surprisingly, it only just occurred to me now that we're also doing quite a lot of engagement with the elasticity of our experience of time. 2 minutes movement to me feels like, in a temporal sense, very different to 2 minutes of stillness. It kind of creates phrases within that time. Very fun. Okay, are you ready for the next one? Okay. This time we are going to play with lighten. Play with a way to lighten up the darkness in the sense of weight. So it comes back to that kind of diving analogy. We're going to close our eyes and toggle between imagining the feeling of sinking and the feeling of rising. I will probably do a couple of little reminders, like just little verbal cues of sinking, rising throughout the 2 minutes. You can track this with your breath if you want to. So breathing in is just like diving. Breathing in is rising up, getting lighter. Breathing out is getting heavier, getting sinking. Or you can also do it through a longer rhythm. So once we start, you'll settle into your own natural rhythm of lightening up, sinking down. Here we go. So 2 minutes, playing with the feeling of weight, heaviness, and lightness in the dark. Even while you're being highly unprofessional, so he's just about to. There we go. Okay, he's now going to sleep, so that's all cool. Okay, we'll start. For this one, I would close your eyes as well, but it's not a requirement, it's just a recommendation. Okay, go. Kind of orient in space. Feel the sensation of sinking and of rising, of weightedness and lightness. for the last 30 seconds, I was kind of observing, and I feel like you can, this would be something interesting for further observation. If you can see that shift in someone imagining being dense and imagining being light, like that movement, because you can I really feel it physically, and you can really let yourself get really dense. I think we'll just go straight on to the next one, and then we can have reflections, discussions, because yeah, to me these are two parts of the same gesture, the same movement. So probably be good if I was sitting a little bit higher, but to extend this feeling of weightedness, we're going to set the timer and do this with our arms.
What are your hands doing?
They're like stretching up and then just flopping.
Okay, so
Like,
this is okay.
yeah.
So like just holding up and then drop.
Just
Okay.
flopping. Like really just letting them go.
Okay.
Like dropping a
Egg.
weight, I was gonna say that. Yeah,
Wait, oh yeah.
dropping an egg, dropping a dropping
A heavy egg. Yeah.
like this.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, a roundedness at the top is nice. That changes it quite a lot. So you can play with that. You can play with dropping a square, dropping an egg, dropping a leaf. We're just gonna drop some stuff with our eyes closed, okay?
Perfect.
And it's really like when I was testing this, very important. When I was doing my testing, it's like a real floppy resistanceless, and it smacks on the ground.
That thing's smacking.
Yeah, smacking. So fun. Okay. Yeah, you can modulate like pace, shape. You can stay at the bottom for a time before creating the repetition. Okay. Ready, steady. That's 2 minutes. What are your findings, please? Pray tell.
It's
That
very,
one definitely seemed a lot. Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I that one seemed the longest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very easy to understand the discombobulation of being under sea without like the how do I say there's like breathing in and going up is the lightness, but it also is more action, which feels like weight. Whereas when you're releasing, there's an emptiness and a sinking to the earth that feels very easy. So it's, yeah, I was getting really discombobulated in the best way.
Mm. I can't help but uh like call back to what you were saying about the frankincense being the top and bottom.
Yes.
And I think a lot of this series is about bringing awareness to how much we prioritize the visual sense culturally currently. And the visual sense is how we determine top from bottom generally. You look in the room like, oh, that's the ceiling, that's the floor. And when you're underwater, when it's dark, it's that motion with your breath and the motion of the air rising that like facilitates that orientation. But there's a parallel with these little 2-minute bouts that I noticed when I was doing it yesterday, that it's a toggling between interiority and being in relationship with the environment without the visual sense. So if I do that first one sitting completely still, I go completely into my like inner experience. But as soon as I start moving, I'm much more in the physical experience of my environment than if I'm being still. And then the same with that, imagining the sensation of rising or sinking. It's a real felt sense, but the physical body's still. And then when you bring in the flopping, it was interesting, Naoka, that you said that one felt the longest. Because it kind of, in a way, it brings us into Chronos, that's the song that I had at the start. Chronos is like linear time. So like the movement of our body in our space is that's our tether to days and weeks and months. So fun. I'm just
Wow.
delighted.
That's wonderful. I was thinking during the first motion one, I noticed that I started out even and then I was going, I guess it's backwards if you're seeing me, but I was going from right to left. And partly there's more light source and sound coming from my right, but I also started thinking about how in like the theory of being able to like tell when people are lying or whatever, or the way that our brains register what we're doing, that it's the creativity goes to the right and memory goes to the left because of our whatever is in our brain in those positions. And I was like, huh, what am I doing? I'm taking something creative and putting it into this memory space. And then suddenly I was resisting that. And I was like, no, go into another, and then at that point, I like kind of to your point, lost the sense of linear time and was moving in other ways because I noticed that I was like, I'm doing something time bound unconsciously. So, wow. Ugh, you're so fun, Karen.
It was perfectly timed.
Yes, totally. We won't be
That's
bound by Excel
fascinating. Right. No. That was so fascinating what you were saying about noticing taking something creative, perhaps, and putting it, if I remember correctly, into the memory space. It's such a fascinating like perception to have with that experience. I love that.
Thanks. I was thinking about, when you do like a timeline jumps in particular, like oftentimes it'll be like to your left is everything you've ever done, and then you go to the
Yeah.
right. I was like, oh, cool. That's just sort of populating itself, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you still hear me?
Oh,
Mhm.
yes. Ooh, Karen on the mic.
Like,
Karen on the ones and twos.
very close. Like,
Ooh, so
now I'll
intimate.
just have to hold it like this now, I think. He just disassembled the whole setup.
Oh,
It was all our movements.
yeah.
There's
You're
like
bringing
all
down the
the
house.
little rubber bands holding the mic in its cradle, and they are no longer
Wait, let me close this.
no longer doing so. Okay. I think that's okay. Oh, the dogs have a very strong sense of chronos. So like it's 3 minutes to 12. It's time to wrap up, guys. Yeah, that's very cool. Moving things from creativity into memory. It's been very fun. And yeah, the next one will be pretty much just like a rest stop. Uh, it's and very like luxurious. Today was maybe a little bit more like spelunky. And next week will be like a little spa. Okay. Thank you. I will stop recording now.
Thank you.
Hi, hello. Hello. Bring my mic a little closer. Welcome to session 3 of Quiet Dark. Today's thematic is Breathe in the Dark. So luckily there will be no timers today, which makes it a little bit easier, I think, because I don't have to like keep track of the countdown. And this is essentially it's a continuation on what we did in session 2, and it's also serving as a rest stop before the next session, which is more active and directive and like more grounded in daily life. So today I'll talk to you a little bit about kind of the framing for the session, and then we're going to do yoga nidra, which I know Pi is familiar with. I'm not sure if you guys have done that before. It's like yogic sleep, so it's super relaxing. I used to have quite a tough time going to sleep at night, and I use this to train myself to be able to go to sleep easily. And it's just like I find it really luxurious and enjoyable. And oftentimes I will fall asleep like when I'm going through it. So if you do fall asleep, we'll do a little bit of like we'll have a chat afterwards to bring us like back to the land of the living. Like if you've got other things to do afterwards, I'm not gonna like get you all relaxed and then just send you on your way. We'll have a little bit of like reintegration time, if that makes sense. So something that I have been thinking about a lot as part of this class series is this idea. Shackleton. I'm getting interrupted by a hound. Shackleton, quiet. Can you hear him? Kind of. I think he'll stop in a second. Hang on. I'm going to have to exit him from the building. I think I can pause my. Okay, so a concept that I've been holding with me with this class series is the idea of breaking our own logic in order to create spaciousness. So in session 4, we'll do that quite directly. But today we are breaking logic in a different way, which is through, I think I put it in the email, resting in absence as preparation for absence. So we're like creating the conditions of lack of stimulus as preparation for those times in life when we feel sudden absence. I'm not going to go fully into it today, but this is kind of like grief adjacent. And as I was preparing for this class, I was thinking about how grief processes are probably a lot more prevalent than we kind of think. It's almost like that same parallel of last session I was talking about the big mystery and the daily life mystery. We also have like big crises, kind of ruptures of grief, but we also have little daily grief processes that are occurring all the time. And this practice of yoga nidra is a way of really like bringing a state of calm and lowering the kind of intensity of stimulus that I think can help prepare for those times when something that we're so like accustomed to is suddenly removed. So we're essentially like exploring absence of stimulus without being in a state of crisis. I feel like Shackleton really threw me off my game, but is that kind of making sense to you guys? Do you have any reflections before we go into the Yoga Nidra? You just wanna go deep. Okay, we'll go for it. So my preference when I do this is to lie down. If you're going to sit up, I would just recommend that you have enough support that if you nod off, you're not going to be in that kind of like when your chin drops and you're kind of, that one. So just that you have enough support that you can really relax. And yeah, that there's no risk of, if you do fall asleep, that you're going to like bonk your noggin or anything like that. The first few times when I did this, there's maybe about like 3 to 5 minutes in, I got a little bit twitchy, but I think that's also, twitchiness is kind of reflective of the if you're in a kind of like prolonged state of hyper awareness, relaxing to this level feels more foreign, and then that's when like the body gets more twitchy. But if you're already feeling like pretty chill, this should be a more chill experience. It's it's that whole thing of like, we get used to whatever state we're in predominantly. So if you do feel like a little bit twitchy, that's pretty normal. Okay, so when you're ready, close your eyes and locate a point of intention in your body, and get ready to rest in absence as preparation for absence. So we start with a deep inhale and a full exhale. You can breathe through your nose or your mouth, whatever feels more comfortable. And another deep inhale and a full exhale. Deep inhale, full exhale. Now feel the contact of the back of your body to the surface that you are sitting or lying on. And relax into your normal or natural breathing pattern. And just take 3 easy breaths without trying to control the depth or the length of those breaths. Now begin to direct your attention to the sounds in your environment. And listen to the furthest away sounds that you can locate. Allow your sense of hearing to radiate outside of the building, maybe across the road, into the woods, wherever your hearing can reach. And move your sense of hearing from one sound to the other. Now bring that sense of hearing into the building. Are there sounds within the building that you're in? Now bring it closer, the room that you're in. And maybe there are sounds in your body, the sound of your breath, digesting, bones clicking. With your eyes remaining closed, visualize the space that you're sitting or lying in. The walls, furnishings, the ceiling, the floor. Imagine watching your body at rest in this space. The clothes you're wearing, the position in the room, the shape your body takes at rest. Now become aware of the effortlessness of breathing. And begin to take a long inhale through your nose. Followed by an even longer exhale through your mouth. At your own pace, allow this breathing to become even slower. Long inhales, even slower exhales. Notice the pause at the end of the exhale. And follow the urge to inhale when you need a new breath. Long inhales, even longer, slower exhales. Just continue breathing in this way. At the end of the next exhale, release control of your breath and allow your breathing to take care of itself once again. Now we're going to bring awareness to different parts of the body and mentally note the name of that body part as I say it. So, starting with the right hand thumb, bring awareness to that spot. Feel the sensation of your right hand thumb and make a mental note. Now, second finger on the right hand, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, the palm of the hand, the back of the hand, the wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, waist, right hip, right thigh, knee, shin, ankle, heel, sole of the right foot, top of the right foot, right big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Now beginning on the left hand side, left hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, the palm of the hand, the back of the hand, the wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, waist, hip, thigh, knee, shin, left ankle, heel of the foot, sole of the foot, top of the foot, left big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Now the back of the body, right heel, left heel, right calf, left calf, right thigh, left thigh, right butt cheek, left butt cheek, lower back, middle back, upper back, whole spine, right shoulder blade, left shoulder blade, back of the neck, back of the head, top of the head, forehead, right temple, left temple, right ear, left ear, right eyebrow, left eyebrow, between the eyebrows, right eye, left eye, right nostril, left nostril, right cheek, left cheek, upper lip, lower lip, both lips together, chin, jawline, throat, right collarbone, left collarbone, right side of the chest, left side of the chest, upper abdomen, navel, lower abdomen, pelvis, the whole right leg, your whole left leg, whole right arm, whole left arm, whole face, whole head, whole torso, whole body, whole body, whole body, whole body. Now return to the feeling of breathing, noticing in, noticing out. Keep some attention on your breath and notice your physical body, the container of your skin, the clothes you're wearing. Notice the weight of your body at rest, the back of the heel, thigh, shoulder blades, arms, hands, head. With your eyes closed, imagine where you are in the room and what's around you. And slowly begin to move your hands and feet. There's no rush. Gradually, with little wiggles. And when you feel fully awake, you can gently open your eyes and notice your surroundings. Have a little wiggle. A wiggle. We may have lost Pi to the void. Oh, hello. We have a visitor.
baby king.
The baby king.
Yes, he just got that nickname from you inadvertently.
How's everyone feeling after the R&R? What did you find down there?
Lost time.
Pardon?
Lost time.
Like the sense of it, or
Mm-hmm. Or perhaps I found that I had lost time. Yeah, which is a favorite.
mm.
That was very delightful. Um, it was like that underground, damp, cold that I spoke of on the first one. And I was feeling very tender in a pulling way, but now I feel very tender in like a delicate way.
For me, it always surprises me how putting putting attention to my body has such a way of like I don't really understand the mechanism of how it works, but it's just like so calming and so relaxing. And I guess, yeah, something that's surprising me about this class series is how I think it's pretty easy to think about darkness in an abstract term, but our body is there is such a kind of like cavernous depth within it, and that like bringing attention to it, at least for me, like I'm someone that can be quite like disconnected or find the experience of having a body like a little bit distasteful at times, but it's like it's such a nice way to enjoy having a physical form, just going through like all the little pieces of it in uh in a restful manner.
It's such a delicious union for Starshine and Human Suit. And I feel like when you said too, when you look at your body or, you put attention on your body, that's not something that at least I have a practice of. And the world is very loud and, it's easy to not listen. So definitely having that connection, relighting the fuse, if you will. Mm.
Something
you.
that, yes, thank you. Something that crossed my mind when you were talking about how calming it is to bring your attention to your physical body. And I think about other calming things that are kind of universal. And one thing I think about are reasons solutions, and also sort of immutables, truthful things, objectivity, undebatables. um, and in a way, I think that our bodies could be the closest and most tangible resource for objectivity. And so, which, to me, has to be next to, or very high up on the list of things that are calming. There's nothing quite like whenever you have a riddle in life and a solution comes and it's resolute. That brings a certain kind of relief and calm. So that was a fun little spiral I went down while you were speaking.
Like body as proof of the realness of what we are, kind of thing.
The body is proof of objective reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a trip. That's cool. Oh, I'm just soaking that in.
Well, it's interesting because this is about darkness, and so, like, the paradoxical component of something so Saturnian and something so seemingly antithetical to that,
Yeah.
producing the same effect.
Well, and we're playing so like I think in the first session particularly we were playing with that paradox of, darkness is emptiness, spaciousness, but it's also density, and our body is such a emblem of our density in that way. Oh, fun.
Love that word. That's really cool. An emblem of our density. I love that. That's so nice.
As Peggy Sue, anything to add?
Yeah, and to that, sort of the energetic density being so specific, as in something like a body somatic meditation, and how it's like not only proof of the physical form but proof of the energetic form as well, because like the cats often come to me when I'm meditating, and they just look down on my body and they don't talk and they don't do anything. The cats, there's only one cat. There's still two cats in my, like, kind of to that point, there are still two
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that line in which, I don't know, on God time. So that's interesting. Um, I also, maybe it was because you mentioned that it was a practice to train yourself to fall asleep, but I had a very random memory while you were talking of being like maybe 6 or 7 years old and staying at my aunt's house, and her husband, my favorite person in the family, I never would sleep. I hated sleep and no use for it. And he taught me a version of that I've never remembered before. But he was just like, you just take all of your body parts and put them away from each other. Like, don't touch your fingers to your fingers. And like, I still naturally, when I go into a meditation, will do that, but I had no consciousness of it until you were talking. So thanks. That was a cool memory. It sort of put me into this like Bardo space where he is and where Jelly is, and where, like, yeah, totally outside time and yet so specific.
Actually.
Naturally.
That last bit, so poignant. So poignant.
I'm gonna weep a little. So beautiful. Mm. I think that's everything on the agenda has been covered. Oh, if you are feeling a little sleepy, I recommend dancing. We don't have to do that together. We can do that once we depart. Yeah, just moving around, getting back in the body, and probably having a glass of water is always good. Yeah, the deeper I kind of go into an exploration of how does one live with the truth of like growth and decline and birth and death and all that kind of stuff in life, it really does return to the basics of eating food, drinking water, sleeping, doing things that are fun, feeling the feelings. It's pretty simple, but it's also complex. And for our next session, it is, I think I called it Start in the Dark. And it's basically about doing like this through your vocation. Like it's about decision making and creativity, and it's quite a sharp left turn from today. Yeah, it'll probably be like the brightest of our darkness class series. Yeah. Here we are. Hello and welcome to
Hello.
Vision Fall. Today, yeah, I think I mentioned last time, today is like a sharp left turn. The theme for the evening is Start in the Dark, which I'm basically today using darkness as like a direct metaphor for uncertainty. So a lot of what I will attempt to communicate in this session is it's some of the like lines of reasoning that I am constructing in my PhD at the moment. So it's kind of an ambitious attempt to communicate a point of view that I'm working on, that I wouldn't say is like fully developed. But I would put it in the bucket of my attempt to form a livable philosophy, a livable personal philosophy. Thematically, today we're looking in the context of like careers, vocation, even businesses, like starting a business. And this is something that I feel like we're culturally influenced to think of these things as like predictable paths and things that we can like set our aim at and then kind of walk towards. But my premise is that they are chaotic. Like a business is a chaotic system, a career is a chaotic system. Even in cases where you have people that say something like, I always wanted to be a concert violinist ever since I was little, and now I'm a concert violinist. Even in that case where it looks like it's like a very predictable path, I would still argue that it's only in retrospect that you can say that that was predictable, because, you know, life is crazy. Stuff is happening all the time. So the premise is also informed by chaos theory, and I feel like I need to say that it's a mathematical idea that I'm using conceptually. So we're not doing the math, but it's informed by a mathematical idea. I feel like it's just something to keep in mind. And so two like principal aspects of Lorenz's chaos theory, which people know commonly as like the butterfly effect, is one is that small changes in initial conditions create big changes later on. So I feel like this can be taken on board when we're starting new creative projects, or when we find ourselves at like a vocational crossroads. So yeah, will I be a concert violinist or a concert cellist? And kind of holding an awareness of that broader decision tree, how like our decisions lead to further decisions later on. But something that has been helpful to me is returning to that central axis of the decision at hand, like today. And then the other piece of chaos theory that I want to kind of invoke here is that aspect of unpredictability that I also spoke to, that we have, maybe, this is kind of with a question mark, we have less power of prediction than what we kind of is comfortable to go around believing. So what we're really talking about today is chaos, choice, choosing, and also courage, which one of my friends told me a couple of days ago that courage comes from the French word for heart is very similar to like cœur. I don't know it, but I don't know how to say it. Cœur. Oh, you're muted, Nayoka. A French translator.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was saying that courage is like with the whole heart. So I mean, it's just beautiful. How can we careers I feel like I'm saying courier, but I'm saying career, like jobs, vocation, work, are such a domain that is so often relegated to mental decision making and like rational decision making. But what if we can kind of take a posture of courage and use that kind of heartfelt decision making as a vehicle to move in these situations that are inherently uncertain. And consciously, it might, at least to me, consciously, it seems pretty obvious that these systems are chaotic. Like, it's not a major insight that it's very difficult to predict, like, whether a specific business is going to make a lot of money or have a lot of employees, or whether a child with a certain set of abilities is going to go on and be a concert violinist. But alongside that kind of obvious, it's chaotic. Yes.
I don't know if we should use these things, but I thought I would try. I just had a question at this particular junction, which is, when you say chaotic, do you mean literally chaotic, or do you mean like varied and fluid?
In this case, I mean mathematically chaotic. So
Okay. What does that mean? Help me.
mathematically, a chaotic system is characterized by unpredictability. So like one of the key examples that Lorenz uses is like a sled going, like if you're riding a sled down a snowy hillside, mathematically you can't predict the course that sled will take. And if you repeat that process again and again and again, it's going to like carve a slightly differing path on the mountainside, but there isn't a way to predict what that path will be. Whereas if I mean, I'm swimming, like I'm up to my neck here in the pool with my I'm like really at the edges of my understanding. But if you look at something like a financial system, it's something that has been developed under the premise or under the guise that it is predictive, that you can't not predictive, predictable, so that you can make certain calculations to predict like whether a certain stock is going to go up or down. But that's not really the case.
No, I absolutely agree. I actually just like talked about this for 2 hours last night on my Patreon, like how money is not logical, basically, to simplify. But I guess like, and I'll keep this brief, it's just like, I didn't know that there was a technical term with respect to mathematical chaos, because like my perception of what I understand you to be referring to, like in the larger sense, like I would never use the word chaotic in terms of like utter confusion and disorder. I would use something different. But if there's like an actual term, like mathematically chaotic, I could see that for sure.
Yeah, so when it's in the context of chaos theory and kind of invoking this like mathematical concept of chaos, it still creates patterns that look often very like beautiful, and often they look very uniform, but you can only see that like retroactively. So that's how it's like different to our kind of colloquial view of chaos, that you
I
know, like
gotcha.
a chaotic kitchen or something, like with dishes
Right.
everywhere and you're like running around.
A different connotation of the word chaos
Yeah,
as far
yeah,
as mathematics is concerned. Yeah, I wasn't
yeah.
aware of that, so that's good to know.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully I've explained it sufficiently.
Yeah, that was everything for me, knowing that there was such a thing as mathematical chaos.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But yeah, I'm definitely not a mathematician by any stretch of the imagination, but I like reading things I don't understand, okay? It's my hobby. Um yeah, so what I was kind of driving is culturally and like specifically in the context of work and businesses, there is a favoring of predictive power. That's how like a lot of cases are made. It's like, oh well, these are my forecasts for income and this is why you should like back my venture, or different things like that. But what I'm proposing is another way to make decisions that I may be like quite literally preaching to the choir on this one. What a fine choir it is.
A choir that's singing so quietly that you need to be like louder.
Yes.
At least for me.
Yes. Yeah, so as like moving right along, as someone who I really enjoy intellectualizing things, I like thinking about things, it is fun to me. I have learned that using that faculty to make decisions is neither helpful nor productive. It kind of creates that like almost, Peggy, so what you were talking about, of there's something over there that I can't see and I'm just fixating on that, which creates stagnancy, or an inability to like engage the decision making faculty and begin moving. So I would have been about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. I was in conversation with a friend, and who was really like grappling with the decision, like, should I do this or should I do this? And through our conversation, I developed this personal axiom of no wrong choice. So it's like a little thing that I say to myself if I'm getting really thinky, if I've got a lot of mental chatter about a particular decision. And this is, I think, particularly helpful in the context of making professional decisions, because there is, at least for me personally, that's where I find I think for some people it would be in different areas of life, like, you know, where they're going to live or relationships or whatever. But for me, in professional decisions, that's where I get the most kind of voice of the crowd going, oh, this would be not wise. So leaning back into that like no wrong choice has been really helpful. And to me, this is like a okay, I have something in my notes that I have no recollection of writing down. So that's interesting. um I feel like I'm reading notes from that someone else has left me. Okay. So this represents the act of choosing being the needle mover, and also it's better to choose that which you can experience most directly. Um, which, especially in this climate of uncertainty, which we'll talk about that a bit soon, is a path of unknowing, which then like comes back to this courageousness. So this next piece is kind of like one of the main points that I'm trying to drive at with my academic work at the moment. It strikes me that there's a current rhetoric of increased rates of change, like specifically with technology and climate issues and things like that. But there's this kind of frenetic message of like things are changing faster and faster, things are getting more volatile, technology is developing at an exponentially increasing rate. But my like counter viewpoint is that it's actually what we're actually dealing with is a state of uncertainty. It's not actually this like increase. It's just the portion that we're aware that we're unknown, the portion that we're aware of that is unknown is increasing. And that's part of just because of the way that information moves in this particular point in time. So with all that being said, how can we recenter ourselves at the choice point? And what I'm offering here is that the starting point of a particular project, course of training, anything that kind of that choice point of saying, okay, I'm doing this and not that, that is really the place where we have the most power within these mathematically chaotic systems that we participate in. So, but how do we, if we're dealing with all this uncertainty, how do we directly like reckon with that rather than being an avoidance of it? And I really feel like the only option is to reckon with the daily uncertainties and really look at them and spend time with them and talk about them and play with the uncertainties. And then the other piece is paradoxical, and it's doubling down on those values and those like personal certainties that we have. So we're like reckoning with the unknown, being with the unknown, and we're also holding dear the things that we do find valuable and certain and heartening. There's a phrase that I use as shorthand for this, which is let go and hold tight to the center. So in a vocational sense, it's this, or even in like a business sense, in a marketing sense, it's a shift from a mental posture of like, this is proven, this is what worked for me, it's going to work for you. It's moving away from that, and it's allowing our answers and also other people's answers to serve as a hypothesis and to serve as like a new decision point. So like, say if I read a book that advised emailing my customers like 9 times a day and it had this list of like, these are all the outcomes that the author has achieved through doing this, rather than going, well, I want those outcomes. If I follow this, I'm going to achieve that outcome. I can bring the answer, so like the 90 emails a day, as I can bring that forward as like a hypothesis that acts as my starting point. So it's kind of like a little switcheroo. And the main outcome of operating this way is that it's more fun, I would say. And that's the goal. To have more fun occasionally. And then this is just like a slight side note before I kind of complete my spiel. Another thing that supports practicing this mode of decision making is if you're creating something and then bringing it to a marketplace, treating that as treating the offering as a separate creative process to creating the thing makes it way more fun. So that's like, I kind of tested this with this class series, is that I set my curriculum as one creative project, and then I set that aside and started a new creative project of offering it to people and asking people to come and join me for this wild and crazy adventure. And it just made it way more fun and a lot more playful, and it allowed the selling process to be a purer expression of what the class series is intended to do, because it's like from a new seed. It's from a new locus of decision making. It's like it's setting off its own chain of dominoes. Yeah. So I thought that's like kind of everything that I wanted to say, and it's very much like a working premise. It's kind of, scribblings in my notebook a little bit more so than some of the other classes. I thought if either of you had like a decision, what did I put in the email? A career conundrum, a decision to address, or a, a crossroads, like we could talk about it. We could also talk more about chaos, mathematically or otherwise.
And then I talk for like 6 hours because it's everything that's been on my mind and in my in my confusion zone. I love what, so if I understood correctly, that last part, it's like the making of the curriculum is its own project, and the completing of the making of it is you've already succeeded, and that's done. And then the experience of allowing it to be received is its own category. And then the actual reception, which is this, is allowed to be its own category as well, which kind of allows each part of it to move in a larger space than it would if you felt like your curriculum's success was dependent on it being received by an unknown factor that may or may not arrive now.
Yeah. Yeah, I only kind of came to the realization recently that maybe not everyone thinks like in geometries in the way that I do with things that I make. Um, so it's like the curriculum in itself is this mm, um this path moving around a central point that is um expanding or contracting, or it's moving, and then the the marketing or the communicating of that offering is like another, it's drawing another shape in in the mental realm.
No, that totally makes sense to me. And in a way, it's funny because I love these classes. I wish that this was just like a permanent thing. It was just like, okay, and then at random days of the week, we do this thing and talk about darkness and spectrums um, and one of the things that keeps, well, actually, a handful of things that keep coming up for me lately and in relation to the class are that I sort of operate on the other side of this, where I often am called into spaces where I'm supposed to remind people about joy and remind people about levity and remind people um, that they're that you don't have to be ashamed or guilty to be in light spaces under the conditions of the world, and or your own or your relative, whatever, any space. And um recognizing that I don't actually have to go anywhere to do that, that like both astrologically and philosophically and logically, I understand that me being in a center point where I'm allowed to have people come into the spaces that I'm in is how I operate best and how other people receive me the best. And yet, I'm always looking to escape into a space where I can speed up time and space and all of these things. So it is very delightful that this is what we're up to. um, I don't know if I lost the thread or not in all of that, but yeah, that's kind of what's been coming up for me around these topics.
Mm.
So then it's like, what decisions can I make if those are the things that I am certain about? How can I like lead myself into uh wow, I don't even know what word to use, because productivity was almost the word that I used, and I'm so like mad at capitalism right now. I can't even like use the words, which in itself could very well be a limitation that I'm experiencing, is like a deep disappointment and anger towards the whole system.
Yeah.
So the shift that I need might have more to do with that than with offering or not offering. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's like the return to, I think, uh for whatever reason, the the realm of, I don't know why I'm calling it a realm, like the area of life that is to do with what like working in the world is probably one of the things that I care about the most in my life, but also has given me the most like strife. And so like uh an antidote to that is this idea of like, well, what actually is within the locus of control? Where can I make decisions? And just having kind of like a general blanket hatred of capitalism doesn't put you in the seat of choice. It creates a kind of like milky film.
Yeah. And it's the opposite of play,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
intrinsic to what I mean when I say joy and levity is fun
yeah,
and play, which is
yeah,
the thing that I'm preventing myself from doing by allowing this reaction to be so extra,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And I think that's also the answer is like what kind of what kind of fun do I want to have, and how do I bring that to the community? Because
yeah,
like because like I actually know what I think is fun, and I find it pretty easy to take care of myself and sort of like reset my own neurological position
yeah,
often.
yeah,
And even on silly Instagram, the response that people give me if I share is one where I'm like, I recognize that all I need to do is invite someone into something and they'll come with me. And that I think is it, you know?
yeah. I would say so. I mean, it's also interesting the fallacy of effort equals results is another thing I feel like is relevant. Um, like with the newsletters that I write, the less effort that I put into them, the better, or like the greater input response like impact it is. And that is just like so counter to my institutionally trained like little monkey
Five
brain.
paragraph essay with 3 drafts and a final.
Yeah. I'm back.
Yeah, sorry, she's trying to pull the curtains like off of the window. I have like I can see her on my phone. That's why I keep looking at my phone. I had to
Yeah.
go in and like, hey, don't ruin the curtains. Yeah.
Just
Sorry about that.
let the light in. Let the light of the
Yeah,
world in.
yeah. 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 No, this is great. So like I said, it's so funny. I was talking about things of very similar nature last night. Um and obviously I didn't catch the full brunt of that discussion there, but I can definitely echo what you're saying, Karen. That funny dynamic where, yeah, the less effort you put into something, it tends to bear the most fruit, or catch the most bees or flies or whatever the saying is. I find this to be true. And it's just on my mind because the topic last night was money. um Even though it's really in line, especially with thinking about business and predictability and markets and things like that, marketing and capital and whatnot. But one thing that has proven true for me, is that money, which we could, put success perhaps in there instead, it follows the venue of focus and not effort. Thinking about your, what did you call it? Choice point? Choice point. Yeah. And all the things that it could be, even at this point I'm just kind of speculating, but thinking about, anger. When people have anger problems, and they say that the best way to mitigate that or to heal that is to focus on preparation, or rather a preventative strategy, and so you think of, within the context of a lot of things that, that I can remember off the top of my head, and in the lecture portion is or what are the things that we can reckon with mentally and ideally over time with practice from a felt and integrated and embodied sense that can prepare us for this choice point, and ideally have a more willful or autonomous hand, and when that is and what the conditions are, so that when we get there, what arises from that is more reflective of what we define at that point in time as personally successful, or so that we can have more fun, and that life can still take its course regardless of all the complexity and, as you say, chaos and things like that that are always existing alongside all the fun stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's really important things
Yeah.
you're speaking about. Yeah.
And also that I think that kind of preparation aspect is a certain amount of the preparation can only be done through the decision making.
Is that, I forget who said it, but the quote, we're never prepared for what we must do. It's in the doing that we are prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Language is tricky.
Yeah.
I find that a lot. Do you guys find that a lot? Where you're like, dang, I wish there was another word that doesn't exist yet that means exactly what you say.
All the time.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's also like such a understanding the limits of language is so it's such like a shared understanding between at least the three of us, that when you have that understanding, it makes language a lot less serious and a lot less playful. So there's like a parallel there with just understanding the limits of our decision making, that opens it, that gives us more choice.
Limitation breeds creativity.
Right.
Yes.
I'm having far too much fun. I'll have to meeting adjourned.
much too good for children. Oh god.
I'll just like melt into a little, like when a bubble pops.
Yeah. Yes, you're made of sugar.
Okay, I'll address the folks on the playback, and I'll pause the recording. So thank you very much. If you have any follow-up musings, you know where to find me, and see you all in May. I think. For session 5. Meeting adjourned. It was quite good having the week off last week and then coming back to it now. I feel like I needed that little break. Today's topic is love in the dark, and it's probably most significantly influenced by I Ching and Richard Rudd's Gene Keys somewhat, just in the themes, and then also, like, as per usual, personal musings, contemplations, and experiences. So my premise today is the inherent uncertainty of loving, and this way that, like, every relationship, whether it's like a romantic relationship, a vocational relationship, or even something that we find resonance with, be it in like art or music or work or any real domain of life, that every relationship contains in its beginning a natural ending. So we previously talked about the beginning of something as being one of those points where there's a lot of room for variation. So, like, how we are at the beginning has great influence later on. And then today we're using the concept of endings, or like the occasion of endings, as a framing for this, like, love in the dark, love and uncertainty, the uncertainty of loving, all these kinds of things. So this is also, the way that I'm going to speak about this is also quite heavily informed by watching a lot of reality TV shows that are centered around dating and relationships. I once heard that going on a reality dating TV show is like the ultimate fool card kind of endeavor, because it's just so, it's entering something that is so contrived, but with the faith and the potential that some genuine kind of love could come out of this completely kind of controlled, contrived environment. And it's also really cool to watch those shows from a relational perspective and see how often the past of the contestants, like their pasts, come in to kind of run their relational decisions. And that's something that we see, like, I feel like most people would have some experiences of going into a relationship and expecting things to pan out how they did in previous relationships. So it's kind of this invitation to not allow the past to run our relational decisions. And given the uncertainty in loving, the lack of guarantee of harmony or reciprocation or longevity or anything else that we're seeking through our relational love and attachment, are we able to see relationships to completion in a manner of good faith and in a manner of trust? Kind of today, this be our sandbox to spend time with the unknowing and the uncertainty that we have kind of folded into any situation where we're loving. So yeah, to love in the dark is the essence of falling. So it's this real like kind of handing ourselves over to these themes. And I also, it was interesting having the gap in classes last week because it fell on an anniversary of one of the most difficult grief experiences of my life. And I found that my body was kind of immediately in that remembrance of that period of time. And it took a while for my thought process to be like, oh, I'm feeling grief as this kind of like repeating rhythm. And can I engage that in a way that is in reverence to that process rather than like in rejection of it? So yeah, even though I titled it Love, it's kind of about grief in a way as well. And this is like stretching the bounds of the curriculum. But in the way that so these endings, they're like grief experiences, the end of things. They are representative of this theme of darkness because my understanding of grief is that it's a kind of proximal shift where something that we felt ourselves to be close to is then at a distance or in a vacuum where something that we could hold is kind of not available in the same way that it was. So you can kind of feel this like vacuum quality. I was also in my preparation, I was thinking about when the grief experiences, like specifically when someone dies, are colored by, there's like the grief process that's occurring, but there's also a shock, like a physiological shock that occurs. And if we think about this kind of like bifurcation of this grief happening, this shock happening, and then we add love into that as well. The experience of love is quite, in a way, quite separate to the shock experience that happens. But the shock experience when someone close dies is so physiologically intense that I almost feel like that's partly what creates this like spiraling, recurring experience of grief that is really like non-linear and will come back if there's like a smell or any kind of stimulus that reminds you of that place or that time or that person or that beloved. So one kind of like final thought is that like through enhancing our capacity for grief by addressing our fear of loss and engaging that kind of particular flavor of darkness, ultimately has the quality of, not the quality, but the it becomes an instrument of our capacity for love, which is like exceedingly beautiful and elegant in my opinion. And then so this kind of leads us into our exercise for the day. The idea that our experiences of love are matched only by experiences of grief and their defiance of explanation. So our feeling of kind of radiant love and then also vacuumous loss are two pretty much universal experiences, but that are, you know, the topic of many poems, many films, many songs, and all of that together still doesn't really touch the edges of what this experience is. So our first exercise, if you're willing to participate, I'll unpin, is to describe love.
Well, that does it.
You just exit.
Yeah, complete. That's funny. I was just talking to someone about my person who makes my coffee in the morning about how entering all of these different dimensions and then realizing that the only thing that is centering yourself as a entity is this vibrational force that we uncovered as just like love. So that would be it for me, is this sort of like, if there is anything that is like, it's not that it's immune to changing, it's that it's the nature of change, and you can't actually adjust outside of it, because only in unbelievable grief have I noticed this, and now I try to remember it all the time, but that is the thing that underpins all of it. So it's like perhaps love is like the moat of reality in this total chaos of everything else.
It's gooey and squishy is like what was coming for me, and I was like, okay, fine. And then as Peggy Sue was talking, have you seen the Midnight Gospel?
Mhm.
The one where he goes with the guy to get the gooey stuff for his machine, but the guy gets trapped in the squiggles or whatever. He's like, whatever you do, don't touch the like the colored bubbles, and then he sings a song about like each colored bubble, but then at the end of the episode he ends up getting stuck in one of them, and it's like it holds him in place, and each color does like something different. But anyways, that's not important. But as you were talking, I was imagining like love is one of these like bubble things that just like, and then I was like a jello salad, and then like all the little things that are like floating inside of it, but like the jello salad like is the love. Just holds everything else in place.
I'm so
Je-
into that.
Isn't Jello salad like the worst food imaginable?
Yeah,
You
and
know,
even like I was thinking about like visually the pudding the that you get like fruit
Yes, yeah, yeah.
around Christmas time, and
Like
it's like the hard
jelly
lumpy
fruit.
thing that yeah, everybody like shits on. But yeah, that's like visually that's like
you know what's amazing is that my aunt Wendy makes her like Jello holiday thing. She does like a layered. She does it in a rainbow, and there are layers of white in between. So she kind of has the version of the Jello pudding holiday dessert that combines our things perfectly. And it's delicious. I think it's just whipped cream in between 5 different layers of jello, and you just eat the whole thing, and you're like, oh, now I'm unwell.
Mm. Oh, it's just perfect. It's everything I imagined. Okay. For our next act, um, describe uncertainty.
Literally just trusting the process. Like, I think for the last 4 years at least, when I woke up, I feel like COVID really woke me up, and recognizing that partly through the process of this class of being able to really define certain things, it has made me understand how much my previous certainty was total bullshit and attachment that was unreal but comforting, whereas uncertainty is the reality. And in
Yeah.
the same study of like, what's good, what's bad, and why can't we actually use those terms in a way that's real, it's like uncertainty is, you can't get outside that either.
Yeah. But it creates the comfort of certainty. In the comfort of uncertainty, there is always underneath a little bit of like, this isn't really real. This comfort of certainty isn't really real. And like uh that uses like operating from that mode of living uses a lot of our resources in maintaining the false certainty. And the more that I'm able to reckon with the uncertainty and the kind of the blackness at the perimeter of my experience that just goes out in every direction. Like I always think of it like the edge of a map in a video game that's just like black. The more that I keep that present all the time, it is much more comforting because I don't have that like kind of churning of, okay, how do we maintain the illusion of certainty? And it also it has a way of like say like calming a very sensitive system in such a way that there's more choice available, because I'm not processing mentally to try and create certainty, because I know that it's not available. So it's a different kind of comfort.
You're not the video character just kind of like running into the end of the earth for forever and just like spinning.
Yeah, just
This couldn't be the edge. This couldn't
I
be
mean, wait, I do, and it's not to say I never go back there, like it does happen, just like butting up against the wall. Yeah. But then also like this week I've been thinking a lot about completing projects and finishing things. And I think at least for me, one of the things that has gotten in the way of like wrapping a bow on something that I'm making is the kind of attachment to the idea of what that finished thing will be. Like, okay, that's going to be the thing. but holding those kind of things with uncertainty. Like,
Cannot hear you, ma'am.
oh no. When did you stop hearing?
It's like that last sentence. Yeah.
Oh, I think I just said not so much endings, but like completions. Is that better? I just brought the microphone a bit closer.
That actually yes, I've been thinking a lot about that since you were sort of talking about the way that you were compartmentalizing your process. I was thinking about this all last week as well, of how adjusting the parameters of what constitutes completion allows for more activity to happen. So there's no reason to hesitate if you're only going a short distance all the time and allowing that to accumulate. Yeah.
So it sounds like bare minis to me.
It's all day. Influence.
Amazing.
Pi, would you like to approach articulation of uncertainty?
I think you guys pretty much covered it. Feels pretty on point. Like they're just you just get used to it. And it reminds me, I've been talking to Violet a lot about like the stakes, like, high stakes. She's like, oh, the stakes feel really high, in like the interview, because she really wants the job. And I was like, the stakes are made up, bro. Like, they're fake.
Yeah.
You made them, why is this different than before? And it's because now you actually want it. So like now you've attached these stakes, whatever the fuck that even means, to getting the job or not. So it feels really intense.
Yeah.
But
I'm tomorrow at Resurrection, I'm teaching about increasing the risks and lowering the stakes. Just
yeah.
Side note.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. I've been having like things where I think I'm reading people's minds now. And then I like do a thing, and then like somebody is like, oh, I needed this thing. And I'm like, I just gave you the thing. Like, or it's weird. It's happened like twice now. So, or I guess 3 times now. But yeah, definitely relatable with like the COVID kind of pulling the veil back on things. And that was when I left Starbucks. And to me, like that, you know, I had benefits, and that was pretty much the only reason why I stayed there for that long. And so once I got out of that and then didn't have them anymore, and then I'd had them for a little bit, and then like now I don't. It's been, I don't know, it's been a few years, and like just before, like literally, like it was like this like fear of like I must have these benefits for some unknown reason. And I just have to have them. I don't know why. This is just what I've been told, so I just have to have them. Um, but yeah, not having them like has not been the end of the world. So just little things like that, you know, or just living on very minimal money when like everyone around me is like kind of wealthy, you could say, and then the way that I see them like have their own money worries, and I'm just like, you have so much and you're worried. Like I am okay with like $5, you know, like like I know, like I know and I trust and all that stuff, and it's been a practice, you know, of that. But um yeah, it feels just like I was trying to explain to a coworker, because he was having that fear, kind of like where he's like, oh, I gotta like, you know, my money, and I have this much saved, and he owns a house and all this stuff, and I guess it's a little bit different when you own things. But I was just like, bro, like chill out. Like I have like nothing, and I feel fine, you know. And you're like, oh, like, oh. And he like was looking at me like, what do you mean like you're fine with nothing? And it's not that I'm like resting in my laurels of like having nothing. Like I have goals, and I, you know, I'm building more, and you know, it's not that I like am complacent in nothing. It's just like the comfort, I guess, the level of comfort that I've been able to um store inside my body. So it's just like,
Yeah, I feel like it kind of it comes back to like the certainty proxy thing. It's like you can it, it, it's yeah, but like regardless of the level of resourcing, like it's kind of the level of resourcing is kind of irrelevant to the uncertainty, because it's just always there. So it could be an interesting capacity building exercise to maintain that level of comfortability with withholding a lot, because I think we're kind of the predominant like mode of growth is, it's like tied in with this idea that when you have more, you will be more certain, or whatever, like you put whatever you want in there. But it's actually so, our relationship with resourcing is like so individualized that everyone's kind of like, I have like the image of a crochet, like everyone's like crocheting a different piece of the blanket. and you know, sometimes we're like over here pretty stoked with our like $5 in our bank account piece of the blanket, and then at a different point in life it's just the uncertainty kicks in. Like in 10 years time you might have like a 100 square foot building that you own. And you might be just as comfortable as when you had $5, or you might be freaking out. Like, who can say? Like,
Yeah. It's just like another way to say nervous system capacity.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So like, did Carly sneak into the chat and where she's just like everything? She's just like, just nervous system.
Nervous system. Well, there's
Damn nervous system.
I think this is like a shout out to Nayo, who will be watching the recording, for the Cosmic Memory recommend. I think it's in the introduction to that book, which is a Rudolf Steiner book, but it might be elsewhere. But it uses, and I could be completely misreferencing this, but I'm pretty sure he describes the nervous system as the spiritual apparatus. That's like that's our way of communicating with other.
The way that it looks, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's like that's the nervous system is our access to spiritual reality. Yeah, I could be misrepresenting that, but I feel like I read something in that book about that really clicked for me. Okay, I feel like we went on a stunning tangent. For our next act. Okay, so we've made an attempt at describing love, we've made an attempt at describing uncertainty. And now I'm going to give you a 2-minute timer, and I'm going to invite you to turn your cameras off. And because I think this is like it's like a cheeky play on the theme that this is like secret. This is between you and you. And then I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and you can stand up, use your whole body, and make an attempt at gesturing uncertainty. And for the people watching the replay, I invite you to do the same. And Bean. Uh, okay, that's your 2 minutes. Would you like to report back before we do the next thing?
I actually did a bunch of stuff.
Like clean the whole house.
I finished cleaning my desk. I decided that I had to pee. But it reminded me this acid trip that I took where a hummingbird outside of my window, or I was outside, so it wasn't outside my window. It's often there though. It just stopped and was sitting on the thing on the wire. And I was like, whoa, what's it gonna tell me? What mystical thing am I gonna learn from this hummingbird? And it squawked at me and it stared at me and then it squawked at me again and it peed and it, I think, pooped and then it flew away back into its house. And I was just like, oh, I get it. All of life. I will never experience the feeling of not knowing what to do ever again.
Um, Next week I'm gonna send out a feedback form, so I feel like that would make a lot of sense in there. It peeped, it pooped.
Yeah. And it's just like, well, what should I do next, hummingbird? It's like,
Oh.
do fish. Also, stop watching me. I'm trying to use the restroom.
A little privacy for the great mystery, please.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, now my desk is clean too. That was nice. So thanks.
Yeah, just keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on the desk entropy.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the next, or you?
I made my little banner on my website say poop and pee yesterday, and I didn't know why. What did it say? What did it say before? I don't know, whatever like the template was, and I was like, that's so lame. And then I had like your shine is divine in there, and I was like, that's kind of lame too, bro. I was like, what needs to go in there? And I was like, I don't know. I'll just like poop and pee. That's what it currently says.
Nice. The highest level.
Ah, okay. Are you ready? Ready for the next? Our fourth and final act for this evening. I don't know why I'm calling it acts today, but it just feels right.
I feel like um the troop in the series of unfortunate events that this is like the episode where we get to become that group of like evil um actors who are always fucking with the kids. Like nice way.
Yeah, that's what the theme of love is all about. Becoming an evil actor. Okay. So we're going to do 2 more minutes, invisible, and no chores this time, please. But actually, no, I take that back because we're going to do 2 minutes of gesturing love. And like when done correctly, cleaning can be a true act of love. Okay, gesture love, 2 minutes, do what you will, gesticulate wildly, enjoy. Then return when ready. Any findings?
I did some spinning.
Mm-hmm.
Some spinning and then some trying to look very specifically at one thing so that I wouldn't feel dizzy, which didn't quite work, but it was trying.
That's exceedingly poetic.
I'm just trying to use my degree, you know?
We do what we can.
And then I fed the plant with Jelly's altar water and replaced it, which felt really nice also.
Mm.
I was moving and like this, and then I got tired and I was like, well, I need to sit down actually. And then I sat down and I was like looking at my upper thigh area, and I was noticing how nice like my skin looks right there. And I've been using tallow specifically on like that area. Because I don't know why like my hips were itchy at one point. And so yeah, I've been using tallow just like my whole womb area, like front, back, sides for a few months now. And I was like, dang, it's like it looks good. It looks nice. It's working. So yeah, that was nice.
Mm. And it's like that like repeated act of care. That's very good. Very good findings.
Mm-hmm.
Successful research mission.
Yeah. Good to have space to notice.
Mm. Well, that completes our curriculum for today. I'm just really pleased with how this whole thing is kind of panning out. So I appreciate your willingness to come along and participate. We have on Friday, our final Friday for me, Thursday for you, our final session, in which we will approach wayfinding, navigation in the dark.
Wonderful.
Which is, yes?
But that one, I just was thinking, did you say that one was longer? Because I also have a really weird energetic class that I signed up for that's right after this one on Thursday.
I think that I did say that it would be longer, but it probably won't. It just the reason that I allowed an extra, I think I just allowed an extra half hour at the end, like to just chat about the whole thing and like what do you reckon, you know? just a bit of what do you reckon time, but it won't, yeah. And yeah, it's kind of it's quite a time warpy, quite a time warpy kind of thing. So I'm sure we'll get it done in time. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop. Wait, I'm gonna cease recording. And as always, may people watching the replay, you can I don't know why I do this, but I love it. You can email me and send me a letter if you have any contemplations that need a witness.